All right, we're going to walk through the material that was on the test, and I'm literally going to use a copy of the test on my side. It's probably not going to be the same questions that you used because everybody had different questions, okay? And so, exit out of that real quick. Okay, I'm going to walk through the things that I saw people doing. You're going to find that with your teachers, and I'm getting better at it, if you turned in a paper like we used to do, when you turn in a paper, I can sit down with a paper and I can grade it very quickly, okay? And then I can hand it back to you. Papers can't go back and forth right now. It's really hard to grade papers on a screen, okay? Literally Friday, every one of my classes were working, and all I did was grade the Sig Fig worksheet that you guys turned in. You know, the one we did 5 out of each section? It literally took me all 7 periods, and I still had to finish it at home. It's that hard to grade on a screen when I can set a paper next to my key. So I'm working hard at it. You'll see that 2 grades went in. So keep up with your grades. After I've done this, if you're like, I need extra problems, that Sig Fig worksheet that you have in your possession has extra problems for you to practice that I didn't grade, but you can practice with. All right? So first thing that you needed to know was the rules for significant figures. I'm going to do this very quickly. There was the rule that of Sig Figs non-zeros. Anything, zeros give us a problem, right? Okay? So if I have a number like this, 121, all of those are important numbers. Why? They're not a zero. That's easy. Rule number 2 is the sandwich rule. Sandwich rule looks like this. If rule 1 says these are important, anything in between something that's important is automatically important. It doesn't matter. 1, all of those are significant. Even if there's a decimal in it, as long as there's something on both sides, they're all significant. Okay? That's the sandwich rule. Everybody tends to do well with that. It's rule 3 that gets people. If I had a number like 45.0, and I'm just walking through the rules, you have to have a 0 at the end of the number and. That's the most important word, and after the decimal. Is that a 0 at the end of the number? Yeah. Is it also after the decimal? Yes. Then that's an important 0. Okay, so in this case, all 3 would be. Here's one that's not. 450. 0 is at the end of the number. That's correct. But is it after the decimal also? No. So what's its job? Placeholders, exactly right. So I'm only sure of those 2 numbers. Do you see the difference between that? This is the hardest rule to understand. You have to have a 0 at the end of the number, and it also has to be after the decimal. That's a 0 at the end of the number, and it's also after the decimal. That's good. This is a 0 at the end of the number, but it's not after the decimal, so I'm not sure of that 0. Rule number 4 says that if you have a bar over a 0 or a showing decimal, that automatically makes that 0 important. So if I have that 450 and I have a bar over it, that's automatically saying that's an important 0. Or if I visibly show the decimal, that's an important 0. Stopping there. Is everybody okay with the rules there? It's not really too bad. It's the application that for some reason was getting us. So I'm going to give you a couple. Okay, I'm going to give you 4 of them. If you want to jot them down, count them up, we'll check them real quick. There's 4 numbers. Take a second, count them on your own page, we'll check them. Few more seconds. What I typically tell people is when you do these, the very first thing I do is I come along, and this is just visual. I just do rule number 1. Find all the ones that aren't zeros, and I put a line. The line doesn't mean anything, it's just a visual. So all I did was underline everything that's not a 0. That starts showing me some stuff. So I got rule 1 taken care of. Rule 2, do I have the sandwich rule in this number? Absolutely, I do right there. Is that the sandwich rule? No, there's not something on both sides. Do I have the sandwich rule there? Yep, right there, but I don't there. I have the sandwich rule there, and I don't have the sandwich rule there at all. You with me so far? Rule number 3, the tricky rule. 0 is at the end of the number. I see a 0 at the end of the number. Is it also after the decimal? Well, there's the decimal, and it's way after the decimal, so that's an important 0. See how I caught that? There's a 0 at the end of the number. Is it also after the decimal? Yes. So that's an important 0. Huh. What about those two? Well, they don't fit rule 1, 2, or 3, so what are they? Those are placeholders. The most common text I had the other day was, Mr. Kelly, what if I don't put the 0.0 in math? It's understood to be a 0, right? So it doesn't matter if you put the 0 or not. It's still a placeholder. It doesn't matter. Okay? So counting sig figs, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I see that I have 4 in the first number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the next number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that number. And then the one that probably tricks people most is this one. And so I'll just do it longhand real quick. Times 10 to the 6th means move the decimal that way 6 times. 1, 2, so that means I'm going to have 4 zeros. 1, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my number. If I follow the rules, got it, got it, got it. Do I have the sandwich rule? No. The decimal's there, but it's not showing. End of the number and after the decimal, no. 4 placeholders. What if it would have said, instead of 6, it would have said 60. I'm not going to write it all, but it's going to be 1, 4, 3, and it'd be tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of zeros that are all what? Placeholders. So in reality, whenever you have times 10 to a power, you're making placeholders. So to make your life easy, I have the hiccups. To make your life easier, how many numbers are right there? That's the answer. Because when you go out, you're going to have a bunch of placeholders. But Mr. Kelly, what if it's a -6? Okay, all right. So I'm going to go back 6 spots. 1, so it's going to be 5 zeros. Point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 4, 3. Follow the rules. Got it, got it, got it. Those are the easy. Do I have sandwich rule? Nope, there's nothing there. Rule 3, zeros after the decimal. Are they at the end of the number? No, those are placeholders. So it doesn't matter if you shift forward or backwards, you're going to make placeholders. This is the number of sig figs you got. So you don't have to write all that out. Just count how many numbers are right there, and there's your answer. Big stopping point. Have I lost anybody on that? Most people could do this. A few people got it really turned around. Okay? Here's the application where people messed up. Okay? Section number 2 was was railroad tracks. So let's do one like this. 45.2 miles, and I want to know how many feet that is. And I'm going to walk through it as if you haven't seen it before, just so you don't miss a part of it. So I'm going to take 45.2 miles, and I'm going to make my railroad tracks. I need words to disappear. So what word needs to go right here? Mile. Thank you very much. Mark it out. What's the only thing I know how to turn miles into? Feet. 1 mile into feet is 5,280 feet. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And I gave you that reference number in your notes. The only word that's not marked out right now is feet. What unit do I want my answer in? Feet. So I'm there. If this question would have said inches, then I would go one more step, correct? Then I would say, well, then I can convert feet to inches. But it didn't ask that right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'll just leave it at feet. But we know it can have more than one step. Now, what's that line really mean? Mathematically? Does that multiply? What does that line mean? That line means divide. So I have 2 numbers on top sitting next to one another. What do you do with those? Multiply, and then you divide by what's on the bottom. This is a division line. So it's going to be 45.2 times 5280 divided by 1. So grab your handy dandy box. Where I see some people messing up is they start trying to do the math before the end of the question. You're going to do the math at the end. My calculator says 238,656 feet. Check me. Did anybody else get that? Got a couple of nods. 238. Great. And I had people do this, and you put that number in the computer and it counted it wrong. Because the instructions said in bright red, put the same number of significant figures in your answer that you started with. How many sig figs are in this number? 3. You were supposed to put 3 in this answer. 1, 2, 3, stop. Is my answer 238? No. And I had a lot of people put, in this case, 238. You're wrong. Why? This is 238,656. How do you round that to 238? Well, but I had to cut the number off. Right. Where's the decimal in this number? Understood. It's right there, right? I have a hole in my number till I get, now I'm going to take that decimal out, but I have a hole here in my number. What fits in the hole? Placeholders. Oh, question, does that make that round? That's a 5 or above, right? The answer to this question was 239,000. So I'm going to do that again, this time in Swahili. Okay, this has 3, you didn't know you spoke Swahili, right? Okay, this has 1, 2, 3 sig figs. I need to go 1, 2, 3 and cut it off. But I have a lot of the number left. So if you had $238,656, that's not $239. Logically, that's about 239,000. 1, 2, 3, stop. The 6 makes that round to a 9. And then I put my placeholders. Do I put the decimal at the end? No. If I put the decimal at the end, following that rule, does what? It makes that significant. Which if this are significant, what does that do to the other 2 zeros? It makes sandwich rule, right? I don't want the decimal. Here's what I saw on the test. I saw people write things like this. They went 2, 3, 8, cut it off. And they wrote this and just left it, or tucked it in and it counted it wrong. You didn't round it right. Or they put 238, they put 238 as an answer. They put 239 as an answer. Some people had 238,000. They forgot to round. You missed it for a simple, yes, you pushed the buttons right, but you didn't round it right. Stopping there. Does anybody have a question on that? No? Okay. Let's try one more of those. A lot of people got that one. Here's the one that kicked people. 78.2 centimeters to picometers. Okay, I don't even know what to do there. Here it is. You start with what you're given. I was given 78.2 centimeters. If you remember from the videos, the only place you can go from centimeters is to the base, which is meters. That's how I taught it in the video. Who's bigger, meter, centimeter? Meter. If they were to get in a fight, he's bigger. He wins. That's a silly way to say it, but he's the bigger unit. He's number 1. So if you looked on your metric conversion chart, centimeters is 1 times 10 to the second, which is 100, correct? If I stopped right there, what's my unit? What my unit is what? What's the only thing not marked out? Meters, right? The 1 meter. Do I want meters in my answer? No, so I have to go another step. Meters can be converted then to picometers. Who's bigger here? Who's bigger, meter, picometer? Meter's bigger. Pico's 1 times 10 to the 12th. And before the test, I told you need to have the metric system memorized, even though I gave it to you. Okay? Even though you had it as a reference probably sitting there, you had to know how to use it. Now, what's not marked out? Picometers. Is that what I want? Yep. Now, do you know in math class what PEMDAS is? Order of operations, right? You've heard that term? Parentheses, multiplication, division are on the same level, right? Does it matter if I multiply then divide or divide then multiply? No. So I can take this divided by this times this, and I get the same answer as this times this divided by this. So put it in your calculator, you see if you get the answer I get. I got 7.82 times 10 to the 11th power. Can you get that? Remember from the other day in class, EE or EXP are the key you want to use on your calculator every time. So when you put a number like this in there, 1 times 10 to the 12, I'm going to write it again real quick. So you're going to type 1, EE or EXP, now it's waiting for the power, and you type in 12. You'll get it right every time. So I did this times this divided by that. Got it. All right, there's my answer. And it's in picometers. And I had people do it right. And then they rounded it wrong. Question said in bright red, put your answer in the same number of sig figs as you started with. How many sig figs are there? 3. How many are there? 3. That's the answer. I had people type in 7.8 times 10 to the 11th and they missed it because they rounded it wrong. However many you start with, 1, 2, 3, is how many you have in your answer. In this case, 7.82 times 10 to the 11th. I had some people like, oh, that times 10 to the 11th doesn't mean anything, so I'll just leave it off. You can't leave that off. Because times 10 to the 11th means take the decimal 11 places that way, right? So that's in the trillions. But thank goodness we don't have to write all those zeros. Oops, that was an 11. Stopping points. Anybody lost? So it had you doing both parts, round and your metric system. Okay? Now when I get to the end of this next section, I'm going to tell you how I help your 6 weeks grade. So stay with me. Lots of you are with me. Here we go. Last section was take numbers like this. Oops, I need to put units on it. Okay? So that's just addition. Grab your handy dandy calculator. And they want you to round it right. And I had a lot of people miss these very, very simple questions. When you add those two numbers together, it's 9.16 on my calculator. If you put that in the computer, and lots of people did, it's wrong. You didn't round it right. So what was the rule for addition and subtraction? Bueller, somebody help me. What's the rule for addition and subtraction? Decimal places. So I'm going to ask a real, thank you very much. The question, is decimal places the same as sig figs? See, this is a decimal. Here are my decimal places. 1, 2, 1. So how many should be in my answer? 1. So I should go 1 decimal place and cut it off right there. 9.2 is the answer for this. I literally have seen people do work on your sig fig worksheet and they did this and wrote the answer 9.1. It's wrong. You have to check the next place you forgot to round. There were 4 or 5 of these that were just gimme questions. But you just have to push the button, okay? So what if this question would have been this? Adding those together. Well, then that would be 8.86. That's simple math. 4.86 plus 4 is 8.86 centimeters. What's the answer? The answer is 9. Only 9. 2 decimals, no decimals. So I have to cut it off right there. My answer is 9 centimeters because the 8 makes it round. It's super simple. And for a lot of you, I see that, oh, I see. I can see what I did. I do this every year. This is not a surprise. I teach sig figs. We do it. We do the practice, take the test. Boom! Brain comes out of your ear. And then I show you again, and you're like looking at it going, why am I missing that? Because right now it's your second time to see it. It's so much easier. We okay? Subtraction would be the same thing, right? So let's multiply. This was what, 4.3 to start? Great. Let's multiply. Take your handy dandy box, multiply those two numbers. 4.86 times 4.3. My calculator says 20.898. The rules change. Are we dealing with decimal places now? No, we're dealing with what? Sig figs, total sig figs. So how many sig figs are there? 3. So I'm not counting the places after the decimal. How many sig figs in the number? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So I'm going to go 2. 1, 2, stop. My answer, 21 centimeters. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Okay? We were making it harder than it really is. We're making it harder than it really is. So I'm gonna finagle this number here for a minute. Let's say it would have been a 19. Ding, 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 ding. Watch this. 3 sig figs, 2 sig figs. Let's pretend that's the answer. 1, 2, stop. That rounds to 20. Yes. Why would I miss it? Who said that? Rock on with your bad self. That's an old term. Sorry, your parents know that one. But yes, there's only 1 sig fig. I was supposed to have 2. How can I fix that? That rule right there. You could either put a bar over it, got it, or make the decimal visible. Bang, I got 2. Thank you very much. But it only had 1. Does everybody see that? And that, I think there was one of those that popped up on one of the, you may have gotten that question, you may not, but it was definitely on the worksheet. There was one that rounded like this. It wasn't 20, but it rounded like this, and you had to have 2 sig figs. That only had 1. So if you put the decimal, you got it right. But out of my day on that question on the worksheet, out of 75 students, no, with my online, I have 105 pre-AP students. 6 people got that question right. 6. Because you rounded it right, you just didn't put your sig figs right. Does everybody see? Okay? Last but not least, last one. What if I had a number like this? 2.43 times 10 to the third times 6.1 times 10 to the negative 7. Put that in your calculator. Let's see what we get. I don't know. I just made it up. Oh, yeah, I like this one. Now I need somebody to help me verify if you got that number on your calculator. I got 0.0014823. Anybody get that? Exactly? Yeah, I got 1. Yeah, I got 2. Okay, I probably did it right. Sometimes I push the buttons wrong too. So if you see me make a mistake, go, I didn't get that, because I make mistakes too. Can you get that? All right, have some people that still, so here's the deal. Clear your calculator. I have too many people that don't know how to do this. Clear your calculator, 2.43. EE or EXP, whatever you've got on your calculator, 3 times 6.1, EE or EXP, whatever you have, negative 7. Make sure you put the negative on it, and it should come out to this. Now, there may be somebody in the room that got this. Why? Well, it put it in scientific, which is fine. 1, 2, 3 places. Both of those are the same number. Okay? Rounding. Oh, how do I do that? Easy. How many sig figs there? 3. How many there? 2. Doesn't count, doesn't count. Why? They're placeholders. They're not part of the number, right? 1, 2, stop. So that should be a 5. So 0.0015 or 1.5 times 10 to the negative 3. And you had it. Does everybody see how to do this? You have the worksheet that has extra problems on it if you need it, so you can play with some of them. But after I've gotten through everybody having this review, you'll get a message from me in Remind that says, I'm opening the window for the retake here and closing the window here. And you can pick a time to retake and try to make a 70. If you're over a 70, retake's not worth it because the top grade by district policy is a 70. But Mr. Kelly, I made a 65 on the test, but you gave us an 8-point curve and I have a 73. You're above 70, I wouldn't retake it. 70 is the top grade you can get. Are you with me? Does this solve what you need? Now, quick announcement to the whole room. So if you're watching video, pause and listen to what I'm telling you. I've done this for a long, long time. So this first 6 weeks, I do things to help your 6 weeks grade, and here it is. Safety test was really good. We did well in the safety test. This test may not have been as good. But for this 6 weeks, the third test is pretty easy. I'm going to tell you what's happening. When we get to the end of the week, you're going to start talking about the elements and their symbols. Okay? Now remember, this is the 4th week of the 6 weeks. Next week, at the end of next week, is the end of the 6 weeks. you're going to start learning the elements and the symbols on the periodic table. Now, you don't have to know them all. Matter of fact, the periodic table's changing all the time because we're actually finding or making new elements in the laboratory that will fill into these spots. But basically, there's 120 elements on the periodic table. You don't have to know them all. You only have to know 60 of them, the most common that we use all year long. So when you get through the curriculum this week, you're going to get to a day where I pull out the periodic table and I literally tell you, take a highlighter and highlight these elements. These are the ones you have to know. I'm literally going to take those 60 elements, and the first of next week, one day is a quiz over the first 30 and their symbols. It looks like this, and you probably know this. What's the symbol for hydrogen? H, that's right. So it's capital H, yeah. What's helium? He. So if the question was helium, you would put He, right? If I gave you He, then you would tell me it's helium. So I'm going to quiz you on the first 30, skip a day, and then I'm going to quiz you on all of them. At the end of next week, I'm going to have a test grade on nothing but the elements and the symbols. Why? Because we'll use these till the last day of the year. So I'm building in an easy test. So when we get to the end of this week and I say, hey, make sure you make your flashcards and know your elements and symbols, I have a lot of people that make over 100 on their next test. Which, if you didn't do well on the math one, you're going to be okay. Because this math stuff, we're going to leave alone for about 6 weeks, and then we start using it again. But it's so much easier then because you've done it before. Does everybody understand what's happening? Anybody have questions on any of the Sig Figs stuff we did? All right, you can jump into the curriculum at this point. If you're already in there, keep going. But that should give you an idea of what we're doing.